When we mix and mingle, letting our morals and ethics play out in our daily lives, we're simply experiencing moral evolution in real time, on a very small, detailed scale. We're continuing the efforts of caveman and Sumerians and every intertwining civilization since. We expend energy and blood and sweat and tears of joy and sorrow as we strive to act morally or not. This is the level where all of our frustrations and fear and hope and charity play out. This level is our conscious reality, but has very little to do with any argument about free will versus determinism. It's too high of a level. But while I say it's too high of a level, it has little to do with the argument, it's still helpful to visit this level to put things in a perspective. When we find ourselves saying things like, people can choose freely between good and bad, or this religion is different from that religion, then we know we've absolutely gotten off track from our scientific inquiry into the true deterministic cause of morality. Okay, here we go. Freewheelers often and frustratingly use indeterminism as a random element that allows for free will. I'm not frustrated at you, though. I'm glad you came. This is ludicrous on many levels, but don't take it personally.
No, it's not personal.
Shouldn't you put in my opinion?
Yeah, you'll get in there. If I did believe that free will was part of my reality, I certainly would not want an outside random element controlling my free will. That is not any kind of freedom I would ever ask for. I cannot make sense whatsoever out of this argument, yet I hear it time and time again. In other words, if indeterminism has anything to do with free will, well, I don't want any part of that. I don't want indeterminism deciding what I'm going to do and animating my body. An unpredictable random element is my free will. How is that free? So I've already kind of gone over this. Indeterminism is like a shoulder shrugging, yeah, whatever. Those pesky particles. For determinists who wish to avoid the label of indeterminist for fear of confusing the opponent into thinking they're on their side. You know, if I said I'm an indeterminist, it mucks up the whole. Determinists also often ignore and shrug off the first cause paradox. What caused the first cause? What caused the Big Bang? You guys know what that means. It's the age-old question that assumes a deterministic chain must start somewhere. Determinists might insist, as they should, that it's almost a moot point, since we have no language or mind to fathom the earliest universe, when time was just morphing into existence. Time didn't even really exist the way we know it now. But yet we insist there had to be a cause. And we use all this language that talks in terms of tense, past tense, present tense, like time-ridden language, as I call it a lot in my book. So yeah, it's a big mystery. But we have no way of even thinking about it or even properly posing the question. What caused the first cause? You know, the question is flawed. Anyway, there's no doubt that we have been living in an overwhelmingly deterministic universe for quite some time. So whatever strangeness happened in the beginning of the universe, and there, you know, in other words, the beginning of the universe was dominated by indeterminism. We were in a quantum soup of indeterminism. And then somehow, strangely, things coalesced and started forming systems, and then the chaos theory really can explain a lot that took off from there. Whole feedback loop, seed growing thing. And indeterminism is still there, but it's gone down into the basement now. It's just kind of the fabric underlying. So, otherwise, a scientific method would not ever be consistent. In the least, we would be living in a truly random mess of a universe. There could be no life or systems of any matter. Similarly, how freewheelers awkwardly try to take advantage of indeterminism. I feel so self-conscious. As an argument for free
That's
will.
getting personal now. I'm just kidding.
Trying to get the,
Just kidding. It's not
No,
personal.
you're right.
similar to that, they use the first cause paradox as a proof of God. Not all, but some do. While not all free willers are religious, most religious people are free willers. To this, a determinist would point out that God does not solve the first cause paradox. It only adds another undefinable layer of mystery to the equation. Free-willers and determinists alike tend to bring up the concept of pre-determinism, like a nervous habit. This might be my number one pet peeve of all time in the universe. Free-willers use predeterminism to point out how useless a determinist's outlook on life is. What is life all about if our universe has already played itself out in entirety and we are somehow only reliving our predetermined fate? Either the free-willer is mistaken or the determinist, or both, depending on beliefs of the specific people arguing. All too often it is both who are mistaken. Determinists usually go hog wild and illogically state, everything is predetermined, when they should just stick simply to, everything is determined. And then people jump in and protest, well, what's the difference? Predetermined, determined. Determined means predetermined, right? You hear that all the time. The pre is what the difference is. The universe computes itself in real time. It has no mechanism or purpose for figuring itself beforehand. And we must also take indeterminism into account. Quantum fluctuations are impossible to predetermine. So now I'm using quantum to show my point. We can't predetermine indeterminism. So the whole idea of predeterminism is driving me nuts. The universe machine ticks away, perhaps getting an indeterministic nudge now and then along the way. We are riding the wave of determining. We are riding the wave of determining, living it as it happens on the cusp of time. Right? So we're being computed in real time. In this debate, predetermined must mean literally pre-calculated to absolute precision and stored somewhere for retrieval. It should not, but almost always is, confused with prediction, which implies a lack of precision. In fact, as soon as the word prediction enters this whole argument, we know we've gotten off course. We're no longer having any kind of logical argument about free will.
Why is it not logical?
Prediction doesn't... Huh?
Why is it not logical? Saying that you can predict, how can you talk about determinism?
Because prediction has nothing to do with determinism. Prediction just means we as humans try to look at a system and predict what's going to happen. It's always related to how we see things. It's always going to border on metaphysics when you start talking about the edges of anything. The edges of space, the edges of consciousness. It seems like in reality you can never think something through all the way to the end without running into some muck. So if we think all the way back in time, we come to the first cause paradox. It's just totally mind-bending. If we think all the way forward in time, well, that seems to be infinity. Infinity? Who can fathom infinity? That's craziness. If we think of the smallest scale, we try to shrink all the way down and look at that, well, we end up in quantum madness. If we try to look at the largest scale of the universe, well, it's either going to be infinity, either the universe is infinitely large, or it's weirdly bended over on itself and loops around. Any of those things are just ridiculous to think about. And I think about them, and that's why I'm crazy.
Yeah, definitely does.
If you think about consciousness, that'll make you go crazy. Anything.
Well, yeah, and then the idea that we view time as linear, for sure.
Time is a whole entity among itself.
Or the
Time.
theory
What
of
is
a
time?
pulsating universe. Or,
Well, they find that time is only relative where there is gravity.
Space, time, gravity is all one thing. Who knew that? So strange.